Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here with School Transportation News. Excited you made it to the podcast. Brought to you by Transfinder, the leader in school bus routing software. Going to be joined by Mr. Antonio Civitella, President CEO of Transfinder in just a bit, as well as John McKinney, who's the owner at Midwest Transit Equipment there in Illinois. They got quite a few dealerships there in the Midwest, and it'll be quite interesting to hear what he has to say about school transportation, school buses, used school buses. There's a lot of info going on right now with supply chain, so a lot happening. Also, we got Mr. Ryan Gray. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Tony. It's always good to jump back in and talk with the nation.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, we got some big headlines coming out this week, so talk to me. What's happening out there in the world of news?
Well, one of the biggest pieces of news that came across this week really was national news. The tragic death of Indiana Congresswoman Jackie Walorski. A lot of you saw that news on stnonline.com and picked up by, every media outlet out there. Flags flying half-mast across the nation at Capitol Hill. On Wednesday, Jackie was driving with two of her staffers. Congress is out right now, so she was back in her second district of Indiana, there in the northern part of the state, and was involved in a head-on collision. Just tragic. She lost her life, as did the director of her district there in Indiana, Zachary Potts, and her communications director at her Washington, D.C. office, Emma Thompson, along with the driver of the other vehicle. So that happened about noon Eastern time, 12:30 Eastern time there on Wednesday. So definitely a big advocate for school buses. If you don't know the name Jackie Walorski, we've written about her several times. She is one of the authors of the Stop for School Bus Act that was introduced in 2019 and was never implemented into full law as a standalone bill, but we do see it in Infrastructure and Jobs Act that was passed last year that, of course, gave rise to the $5 billion EPA Clean School Bus Program. So we actually write about that Stop for School Bus Act provisions that's in that bipartisan infrastructure bill here in this August magazine issue. So you can head over, if you haven't received your copy yet in the mail, you can head over to stnonline.com to read more about that. But just coincidentally, as I reported on Wednesday, we were talking about that aspect of school bus safety, and really what it's looking at is the danger zone, school bus loading and unloading, illegal passing, the illumination of school buses, technology that can be used to keep students safer. So National School Transportation Association worked a lot with Jackie Walorski and her staff over the last several years. They gave her a Bronze Bus Award, actually, at the Capitol Hill Bus-In earlier this spring in April. So I know it really saddened and shocked a lot of folks there at NSTA.
Yeah, Ryan, a lot of talk right now, too, with EPA's new Clean School Bus Program and a lot of the legislation that's going on out there. And I know we have a couple of deadlines coming up, too, right? That $5 billion over the next 5 years, and then that tranche of $500 million that is in the queue right now. People need to go to that sam.gov website and fill out for, application to kind of put their name in the hat, I guess, for who's going to get funding first for the opportunity, and different, rural and socioeconomic areas are going to be prioritized for that funding. But it's still, you should go for it, guys. I mean, this is a landmark event to try to tap into this first ever federal funding opportunity for low emission, zero emission school buses. So really exciting stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, we've got August, is it 17th?
August 19th deadline for the Clean School Bus Rebate applications. So that is coming up quick. And as we heard at our summer conferences, the biggest part of that application is that sam.gov application. That process can take days. So really jump on that now. And interestingly, I also learned last week of additional money or financing available from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that USDA is working with EPA to provide more funding sources to rural school bus operators. So, August 10th, which, is when this podcast is coming out, there's a webinar on this with the EPA and USDA. So you can head over to stnonline.com to find an article that spells out a little bit more information on that. But essentially for rural municipalities and, nonprofits, school districts, apply under this. You can get up to 20 years at a 0% interest rate. So that's big news right now as we see interest rates climbing all across the board as the Fed tries to address inflation. Up to 5% interest rate for re-lending to end users, qualified consumers for up to 10 years, and up to 4% of the loan total may be used for startup costs. So, just tons of money and opportunity out there. Again, that webinar is today, August 10th. So look that up. Again, there's more information on stnonline.com.
Yeah, I know, Ryan, you too posted a story last week about the first West Coast V2G pilot project down in San Diego, Cajon Valley, which is really interesting too, because everybody's talked about V2G, but nobody's really done it. I mean, we've kind of already kicked it around a little bit, and here comes a story where they're actually doing it, and more are coming, right? So really exciting times. Can you shed a little more light on that?
Yeah, sure. So actually, this is about the third V2G project, and this one down in Cajon Valley in the San Diego area is starting up with the new school year. So this month, and it's going to be rolling out. And they're going to be using 6 of the district's 7 Lion C electric school buses. Again, this is not the first V2G project. There was one in White Plains, New York, which was run there by Durham School Services and Con Ed, the utility up there. But also, too, we have the Beverly Grid project in Massachusetts that was using Thomas buses, so the Thomas Julie and Proterra. And, we have an article coming out in the September issue. So I kind of want to, promote that a little bit where we're talking about V2G. So very timely stuff for this. But, there's some interesting lessons that are being learned. And like you said, Tony, it really hasn't been ready for prime time, but it's coming. And I think that, this first West Coast project will really, further along this V2G bidirectional charging. It's all about the utilities are trying to really figure out how it's going to work for them. Of course, the promise here is that school buses can be part of the infrastructure that is providing electricity back to the grid. But so much has to be done with the grid. I was reading recently, somebody said that we have a 20th century electric grid with 21st century needs and appliances and applications. So many electric vehicles out there, not just school buses, of course, our passenger vehicles. We have, this vehicle to everything concept the Department of Energy is really pushing. And the vehicle to everything is not just electric, as, STN Expo attendees learned in Reno last month. Vehicle to everything is, like it says, vehicle to everything, how it integrates with other vehicles on the road, how it integrates, of course, with the grid, how it integrates with traffic signals. The list goes on and on. But some really interesting stuff here. We're in the frontier days of electric school buses, certainly.
Yeah, I know we also saw a first Bluebird launched a repower option last week, which is suggesting repowering gasoline and propane vehicles, which kind of caught my eye. I thought, whoa, that's different. Hadn't seen that before. So any more insights on that release?
Yeah, well, Bluebird announced that last week. They're partnering with Lightning e-motors. So some of you might know Lightning from the work they do with such manufacturers as Collins School Bus. So heretofore, they've been really focused on smaller vehicles, that last mile vehicles, delivery vans, of course, Type A school buses. But they are working with Bluebird on, like you said, repowering gasoline and propane to battery electric. And we know that we've seen repowering out there for a year or two now. A lot of repowers in New York City. That's where a lot of the initial school buses are being repowered. So we're taking existing vehicles, we're stripping out all the ICE components, the engine, of course, the drivetrain, the transmission, and we're replacing it with an electric drive and the batteries and all of the wiring that needs to go into that. So it really limits the upfront costs. When we're talking about $375,000 for a new electric school bus, aside from all the federal money, and if you're not eligible as one of those prioritized districts under that EPA clean school bus rebate, you're getting, maybe $250,000 of that money. So you're still on the hook for another $175,000. And, granted that you can piggyback on the EPA clean rebates with local state grants, but you got to make sure it's not other federal money. So of course we have this USDA financing program now, but again, that's for rural districts that a lot of those are prioritized under the EPA rebate. So, with this repowering, it's another option. Folks want to get, moving toward electrifying their entire fleet. This is how they can get their feet wet at literally a fraction of the cost. So I have an article up on stonline.com. Of course, we also got the press release last week as well, but you can head over to the website and get more details on that. So what Bluebird is going to be doing is their Type C Vision school bus models manufactured after September of this year will be eligible for this repower work. So folks who buy those buses, they'll be able to, somewhat down the road, depending on what they wanted, how they want to factor this in, they can then opt for this additional charge. And Bluebird hasn't figured that out yet. Spokesman was telling me last week. But then Lightning eMotors, they have conversion centers across North America, and they will be able to then strip out all those ICE components and electrify. And, like you said, Tony, this is the first, really factory approved option, so it remains under warranty. It's done to the same specs as a new bus rolling off the line. It's just that it's really looking to try to incentivize school districts and companies that they don't have or want to spend the amount for a new electric school bus. They can go ahead and get their feet wet with one of these repowers.
Yeah, and I have noticed a lot of the OEMs presenting charging options, right? Bluebird launched their Bluebird Energy. Lion's got their version. Everybody's kind of hooking their wagon to charging infrastructure partners. So it's kind of a holistic approach, right? So they're not installing the incorrect chargers for their typical bus, right? So because it's not one size fits all, right? People have different technology. So it's just making sure you're partnering up and choosing the right solution. So you're making the right capital investment, future proofing. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch. There's just so much content on this. We could talk for hours, Ryan, but I know you've got a great interview coming up with John McKenney, and Midwest Transit Equipment had partnered up with C Electric, and they had made a big announcement, right? So they're doing a repower as well, which is really interesting. So really excited for you to dive into that interview here. But before we get to that, I am talking with Antonio Civitella. We're talking about teams, top teams, awards, really good stuff. So let me get right to that. All right, School Transportation Nation, really excited to bring our guest. He's a regular on the podcast, Mr. Antonio Civitella, President CEO of Transfinder. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Exciting.
Yeah, no, we've had a lot of big announcements with Transfinder as of late. At STN Expo a few weeks back, I stood on the keynote stage and I announced our new top teams. And you're kind of thinking like, top teams, how are you going to judge top teams? Well, you know what? School startup is right on top of us right now. Everybody is feverishly starting up. I'm seeing videos online, everything happening. We can't do it without our team. So Tony, you brought this idea to STN to kind of say, like, how do we measure? How do we identify who is the best of the best and kind of bubble that up to the top and give the school transportation community an opportunity to really kind of provide feedback right? And our keynote too, Stacy Hankey, she was all about how do we accept feedback and learn from it. So do you want to share a little bit about school startup, your big idea for this Top Teams 2022? What's that look like?
Well, there's a lot of things. Well, listen, I know a lot of our clients already started their school years, so we wish you well with your first day of school. We're already getting some good feedback from our software, of course, the innovation software. So we're so grateful and thankful that we won the Innovation Award for the best software. And we already got, it's fresh off from our client side. They just let us know that our drivers are saying that they never felt more confident going to the first day of school because of using our software. There's a driver app, which is called Wayfinder. So exciting. But yeah, you talk about the teams, because obviously they've been working so hard the past month or two just to be prepared for their first day of school, really the first week, first couple weeks, and of course the driver shortage. So yeah, it felt like, how do we identify the top transportation teams in the United States? So we have a nomination form, and we've already had over 50 nominations already coming through on our site. And yeah, are you eligible? You're eligible because you just have to be in a transportation school bus industry. Get out there. Why you want to do this? First of all, you get some bragging rights if you win the top transportation teams. Your team benefits knowing that they're working with an organization that is categorized as being the best teams. And the other thing, we also think it's a good way to recruit. It's a bragging right that you could use to say why you want to work for this organization. Tony, you asked me a good question. Well, how are we going to know who's the best team? Well, there's going to be a survey. We're going to be surveying employees. So yeah, it's best teams based on how the entire team answers these questions. So it's engaging question. It's seeing how they feel about the operation. And by the way, please, not everyone's going to win. But even the ones that don't win, I hope you see an opportunity to see what's going on. Maybe there's some tweaks you need to make. It's a good way. It's anonymous. So your employees are going to, say the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly. And it's okay if you don't win. Transfinder has done these, personally, we've done these awards multiple times, and we didn't win all the time, Tony. But I definitely wanted to see, all right, what's going on? Yeah, did it hurt me a little bit? Of course it did. But then I brought all the managers together. All right, what's up? Let's look at this. And, we took those criticism that we had our spidey sense in the past, but now we have real data. Here's what our team is thinking about us as the leaders, as a lot of different things. How are you going to know? Well, this is a good way to find out. So I'm excited about really having this top transportation teams award. And obviously, there's going to be more than one team that's going to be recognized. So there's a lot going on here.
It's scary though, right? Like people are actually going to be able to really voice out. And it's always kind of like, I don't know if I want to participate, but we want people to engage with this. We want them to accept feedback, like you said, negative or positive, because it's a growth opportunity. But if you win, it's going to feel really good. And I totally agree with you. It's a great way to recruit. Like, hey, we were awarded Top Transportation Teams 2022 by the leading school transportation publication, software providers. It was a community effort. Our team said this is a great place to work. I seen those ads in magazines on airplanes and stuff. And, you see that. So school transportation really doesn't have that. And it's a pretty big undertaking to kind of ascertain the information and really judge based on the feedbacks, because it's very subjective to some degree, right? So what kind of buy-in have you gotten already since we made the announcement a few weeks ago?
Well, again, we have already had over 50 school districts that are nominating their district to participate. So we're already getting tons of buy-in. There will be a little more time for nominating your school district. I got to tell you, Tony, when you and I talked about this many months ago, I really didn't know how many school districts are actually going to hop on. And by the way, it doesn't have to be just school district, it also be private contractors. So please get on there, because we want to be able to identify different top teams. There's a difference between working for a private company, a private school bus contractor versus a school district. There's a lot of different reasons. So please, we would like to have a mix of all different types, very large school districts. And we've got some very large school districts already have nominated themselves. And of course, they'll get an email soon saying, all right, we're about to send out the survey to your team. So please provide us the emails, and they're going to get an email. And again, it's going to be 100% anonymous. We don't ask who they are. They're just emails that you provided us, and they're going to have several questions they're going to have to answer. And there'll be some place where they'll free form if there's ways to improve and how they talk about. There's going to definitely be leadership questions, and there's a lot to say about leaders and how you set the tone. And some of you might think, I'm an average leader, and maybe your team sees you a lot better than that. There's just so many great takeaways. Again, this industry really never looks at it this way. We always look at the day-to-day operation, but I really want to be able to see what can we look at, what other private companies, and there's a large organization like the Inc., the Fortune, Wall Street, they all have like these massive best places to work awards. So Tony, when you and I talked about this, why should it just be with these Fortune 500 companies only participate? Why not just have all of our industry and have a way to improve? And again, not everyone's going to be winners. Winners, majority are not going to win. But please take advantage of the results and see what you could do, because maybe you go after it next year. So Tony, hopefully we could do this for the next couple decades.
Yeah, that would be fun. I know teamwork makes the dream work. So you got to have people, and recognition is a powerful thing. Tony, where do they go? Like, if I'm interested in getting engaged with this top teams idea, where do people go? What URL? What information they provide? What's that next step?
TopTransportationTeams.com. You also could go to Transfinder.com. It's on our banner right up on top. So it's going to be there for a while, of course. So please do that. I think the nomination is going to end September 30th. So you have until September 30th to nominate your school district. And then once we've nominated and enrolled, the survey is going to go out. And the surveys will be ending at the end of October. So you'll have a few weeks for your team members to actually respond to the surveys. And then we'll be announcing the winners, I think, end of the year or in January. So that's exciting. And I think, you're right, Tony. I'm always nervous whenever we go after one of these type of awards, because it's not what I think. And of course, I'm always going to be optimistic about Transfinder. It's what employees say. And by the way, like I said to you before, sometimes there were some tough statements. They hurt a little bit. I took a little bit personal. Like, what are you talking about? But that's their opinion. And its perception is reality, everyone. So what people perceive is what they think is reality, even though maybe it doesn't match. It's an opportunity to reset, re-engage your employees. And I'm super excited, because I know how much that type of work and really this type of exercise that we've done here at Transfinder and other companies have done this, how much they've benefited. But you're going to want to do this because it's important to you, and it must be important to you.
Yeah, I know our keynote speaker at SC Expo, Stacy Hankey, she said it really well, is that you go to that defense mechanism when you get criticism and you automatically are on the defensive, right? And you kind of got to put that down and realize, hey, this is for the betterment of all, for the betterment of the team. Now, Tony, just to clarify, you don't have to be a Transfinder client to participate in this, correct?
Definitely not. We want all of, and we love to even have future Transfinder clients participating in this. And we want to tell you, we have, just looking at the list that's already participating, they're really all over. And by the way, we've got some small district and large ones too. So it's exciting. I'd like to see more bus contractors in there. So let's get some of those in there. And again, they'll be in different category. We'll see how it comes out.
That's great. Okay, so toptransportationteams.com. Check that or go to transfinder.com. And then Tony, again, congratulations on winning the STN Expo 2022 Innovation Award, voted on by STN Expo attendees, best software. That's got to feel real good. I know your team works tirelessly to create software, and it was voted on. So guys, that went down at STN Expo a few weeks ago. We had live voting at the trade show, on the trade show floor, to identify 5 different categories that we had. And that story is up on stnonline.com. So you can read all about the Innovation Award winners and get a little more detail on that when you guys check it out on the website. But Tony, really want to thank you for coming on, sharing a little bit about top teams. This is really exciting. Can't wait to recognize some really outstanding groups of individuals in school transportation. Good stuff, man.
Awesome. And everyone, have a great opening day. If you have not had it yet, obviously we're here for you if you're Transfinder clients. And if you're not, we'll be here for you next year, perhaps.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Tony.
Take care.
Want to welcome our next guest on School Transportation Nation podcast, John McKinney, an old friend of STN. It's good to see you, John.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
So John is the owner of Midwest Transit Equipment, one of the largest school bus dealers in the nation, servicing 5 states in the Midwest, selling IC buses, Collins buses, new and used. John, before you joined Midwest, before you purchased it, you'd been involved with school buses for a while. Why don't you share your story with everybody who might not know who you are?
Okay, so I appreciate the opportunity. I actually, out of college, hired in with, at the time, was International Harvester, became Navistar. That's well over 30 years ago. But as part of that transition, I was working in Springfield, Ohio. I ran in the plant there, which was their biggest operation. And that's where they built all their school bus chassis at the time. So kind of that was my first introduction to school buses and school bus chassis. And of course, at that time, it was not an integrated product. Those chassis were sold to Carpenter and all the other different bodybuilders. I left there, or I didn't. I stayed with them, but I transferred from that plant was in Springfield, Ohio, and I came to our corporate offices. I started working there, and one thing led to another. And I got the opportunity to be president of Navistar's bus division, which was, IC Bus. So I did that for, I guess I ran that business there for them for, 8 to 10 years. Then, as all places, there were some changes and some consolidation. So actually, for a time, I was still running the bus and the truck division and those kind of things. And I got my 30 years in there and kind of had run that race and decided to, try something different. I knew the prior owners at Midwest Transit Equipment, Barry Hebner and Jim Bridgewater, great guys, still friends to this day. They were getting ready to kind of exit the business. And so it made perfect sense. So I was able to, purchase the business from them with some partners. And so that was back in 2017. And I was able to bring a lot of my team from IC Bus. Some people might know those names, Paul and Mark Lee, Dan Cutter, James Ryan, people like that came with me. And so we've been having a great time here at Midwest Transit. So it's, as you said, 2017. It doesn't seem like seems like it's been a day, but it's actually going on 5-6 years. So it's been a great time. I wish I'd done this a long time ago. It's a lot of fun.
It's great to see you again. And you mentioned some old names there, and Jim and Barry. Say hello to them.
I will certainly do that.
It's been a while since we've seen them at the trade show circuit and whatnot. So obviously you knew Midwest Transit extremely well. One of a longtime dealers for IC bus brands in the Midwest. Obviously you knew already a lot about the manufacturing process, the sales process, leading that team there in Illinois with Navistar and IC Bus. But now that we look here, 2022, we have this seemingly once in a lifetime supply chain issue. Have you seen anything like this when you're looking back over your 30 plus years in the career?
No, I've never, so actually, Ryan, the job I had before I became the president of the bus division was I was in charge of all the manufacturing operations and purchasing at Navistar. So I was very much attuned to supply chain. That's what we did. And I never certainly you have issues, and you'd have ancillary one supplier have an issue, but I've never seen something across the board. I talked to the team from IC Bus. We're on the phone with them constantly, and the trials and travails they've had to go through and trying to work through this. It's been incredible, and everything is so far behind. And I know it's not just IC Bus. I know the Thomas and the Bluebird. It's all that way. I think the industry is about 6 months behind in terms of delivery, which is really putting a lot of pressure on the business. And it's not only the new bus sales. It's from a parts and service standpoint. It's getting those materials in, and it's so difficult. And it's really difficult for the three big bus OEMs in terms of Thomas and Bluebird and IC. But likewise, the Collins and the Type A, those people that are still built on a chassis, right? So those products are built on a Ford or GM chassis. And with the issues they're having, Collins, their chassis inventory and what they're receiving is so depleted that they're way behind in terms of where we would normally be. At this time of year in our business here at Midwest, and we move a lot of buses, of where we would normally be at this time of year, we've probably only delivered 40% of the new buses we would typically deliver by this time of year. It's a huge, I know there's a lot of pressure on people too. It's schools getting ready to start. But yeah, this is unprecedented. And I don't think to me, what we're hearing is I think this is not only a 2022 problem, but a 2023 problem as well.
Absolutely. And a lot of the folks that I've spoken with, it could be even a 2024 problem.
Yes,
I've heard people say, you order buses right now and you might not get them till the fall of 2024, at least the summer.
Yeah.
So that's a long time, a big backlog there that you're mentioning, 6 months. You mentioned schools start up. What are some of the options then for school districts right now that they need buses? And, we're seeing that obviously one of them could be extending replacement, right?
Yes, exactly. We've seen, so certainly, state by state and district by district, in our industry, there's all kinds of different parameters. But what I am witnessing is we're working with people is somebody may have a contract that has an age limit on their bus. And so you got to get to some people and got to kind of educate and say, here's the reality of the world you're in. And so maybe, if it's a 7-year, 8-year, maybe you're going to have to extend that to 10 years for now, or do something to allow you to keep operating the buses you have. There's also a lot of customers out there that are lease customers. So their lease is coming up. They've got a bus coming back, that's no longer there. So can they extend the lease? That's an option. If they can't, because that bus is technically not theirs anymore. If they can't just buy, then that bus has got to come back in, and we're dealing with that all the time. We're fortunate enough, and we've been working with our customers. We're kind of putting together I'll call it a loaner program, if you will, right? So to bridge the gap between when their bus should have been here, or where we, to support school start, and now maybe it's out in December or January. Do we have product that they can use to operate in the interim? And, that's kind of what we're deploying. And those are used products, right, that are there. We're also fielding a lot of calls from all over the country in terms of if you have inventory and I need a used bus, not only from customers or school districts, but also from other dealers, other places that want inventory. And we have that. We're very much a used bus. That's a big part of our business. And so we're trying to do all we can from that standpoint. But I've talked to a lot of dealers. A lot of people are going through the same thing, but it's a difficult time right now. There's a lot of tension out there, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Because people are getting ready. And I guess the message there is the decision on school start, and when you make your buying decision, the typical calendar over the next, and you said it, 2023 could be 2024. We don't know. People's timeliness on when they're making decisions, because the sooner they make it, whether or not they're going to go with a used bus or they're going to go with a new bus, the sooner you make it, you can get that order in and get that done, the better they will be, the more certain they'll protect themselves. Waiting is a difficult thing. And we were promoting our used inventories. We saw this in the communications we've had. So our sales, Ryan, have flipped. For every 3 buses, if you go back to prior to 2019, for every 3 new buses we sold, we would sell maybe 1 used. And it could have been 4 to 1. And right now that's totally flipped. We're selling 3 to 4 used buses to every new bus we sell. And we could sell all the, it's truly a function of supply and demand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you talking about that, so seeing that you're used to having a certain inventory of used buses, so that's got to be depleting.
Right. So what we have had is, in our market, is we have a pretty big lease portfolio. So we're in that market where we're entering into a lot of 3 to 5 year leases. And so we have been for a long time, buses coming back in 3 to 5 years, and there was developed a very healthy used market, but it is still challenged because those buses coming back in. So we are, always we would have end of the year with a tranche of units, if you will, until the next year. And we're, basically now we're sold out. It's people we had talked to before come back and, hey, I could use a used bus now. We're like, I can't, here's what we have, right? You want a 72 passenger this. I've got these 66 passenger. They may not be ideal, but this is what we have for you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Unprecedented.
Ryan, the other thing that I would mention here that I think it's important for people is not only have we seen, I've just never seen the backlog. And it's not just the school bus. We're a commercial bus dealer, and just as a result of the body on chassis build, I think that industry is hurt even worse. I mean, we're seeing the same kind of thing where you just cannot get a new commercial bus. You just cannot get a new shuttle bus, a new 12 and 2, because they just don't have the chassis to build on, whether that's Rev or Forest River. They just don't have the chassis. So again, it's the used market, there. But it's not just school buses. It's across the board. The other thing that's happened is with the inflationary and all the supply chain challenges and the cost increases that are happening in our industry, the OEMs, it's a real predicament because they're 6 months late in their production, probably, or 4 to 6 months behind. They're taking these price increases and they've passed surcharges. We've had numerous surcharges that we've gone to the market, but the buses they're building are still from before, right? So you understand what the pressure there on the price of the vehicle and all that. And it's a real tough situation for them. I know you guys have probably heard the price increases. What a normal 72 or 78 passenger bus cost a year ago or a year and a half, and what it costs today, it's a major difference. It's a $10,000 to $15,000 raise in price. Yeah. It's incredible.
And I've heard of school districts that are basically tearing up those invoices because they were expecting the buses, like you were saying, 6-8 months ago, yep, a year ago, maybe in some respects, and then they're seeing this big markup, and they're like, we're not doing it. It comes back to what we were talking about earlier with just holding on to those buses longer. Yeah. Just, again, an unprecedented time. So I want to definitely talk about electric buses because late last year, Midwest made some big news with their partner C Electric, which is out here in our neck of the woods in Torrance, California, with repowers of diesel buses to electric. Right. 10,000 was the number that was thrown out there. I know the World Resources Institute, which has its large electric school bus initiative, they're tracking vehicles on the road as well as in the pipeline. They've factored that into their numbers to really give a boost to what they're forecasting over the next year and a half or so. Tell us where that project stands.
Yeah, so our project with C Electric, and I think it's really exciting. And actually, I think it's interesting to me that I just saw where Bluebird is coming out with a very similar strategy. Yeah. And, I think from my standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world to me. And here's the thing. We're at the beginning of the EV journey. And I think we all know it's inevitable. This is where we're going. When we get there and how we get there is yet to be determined. So I think as many options that are out there so the whole industry can make this move as graceful as possible is important. And we call it, I hear you say repower, we call it transformed internally. But really what we're thinking is, and we've done it, we have units out there now that we've transformed, repowered. We love the partnership with C Electric. We think they got a great technical solution. There's a lot that we've, vetted that out and I know they vetted us out. But the benefit is, what you have is right now, if you order an EV bus, it's a time frame, right? You're a year out before you're going to see that bus. And you're talking a price point, wherever you're at. I mean, the infrastructure money that's out there, the $500 million, that's a $375,000 per electric bus. So that kind of tells you what the price of that new bus is. It's in that range. So At $375, there's a lot of savings operationally to a school, but it doesn't make sense economically, right? You got to have grant money. You got to have those kind of things. The solution we're talking about can be done for half that cost. And now when you think about the total maintenance and you run that over 10 years, it actually can make sense. And it's quick, right? You can literally, we think we have the ability when we're up and going, we can turn a bus in 30 days. And really what we're doing is we're taking a used bus, pulling the powertrain and putting a C-electric powertrain in that. We refurbish the bus. And if you talk about inventory, if you think about it, a school bus, a body of a school bus, we all know the construction and what goes into that. That body's going to last, 10, 15 years, right? Boy, you can put a paint job on that, make that look like a new bus. You repower it, and now you got an electric bus that does all the foot functionality and performance, and you're in there at half the price or less. And plus, you get timeliness, right? So we're excited about that. We're working on those now. We have product that we have on the ground, buses we have with some people to running that. And a lot of that is going through, where do you put those buses initially? Because I think with the EV space, the product is one piece of this, but almost bigger than the product. And this is the first time, again, another change in this whole industry landscape. Before, you sell the bus and you're not really worrying about fueling and, you're not worrying about that stuff. Now, the whole idea is, you got to give a school a turn. This is a complicated thing. So what's the turnkey solution that you can give somebody? So I'm giving you electric bus, they got electric bus. I can power it. I got the infrastructure in place. I have the training and everything. So it's packaging all that together. So I think it's very important to be, think about where you go with the product, where you put it, make sure you're there to support it. This is one of those ones where it's the whole, term slow down to hurry up. I think it plays well because I think you could hurry up and throw a lot of units out there, and that could be a problem because you could give a bus to somebody that they're not prepared to operate the way they can. So that's going on. I know, we're have our IC, love the product, the new bus product electric product that we have from them. And again, as part of our dealer responsibilities, it's all that being able to have that whole turnkey approach, making sure we have the infrastructure, make sure the school's got the infrastructure before you deliver a product to somebody. So I think there's a lot of good work going in, but there's a lot going on there. And like I said, I do think a way to jumpstart this for schools or people or entities to get into this and try it out, the transformation or repowered unit is a great way to do it. It's a more economical way. It's a way to get there quicker. And I would recommend that to a lot of schools or places. If you were going to go, get one or two and see, run it before you dive in with 10, 15, 20 units. I would think that would make sense.
Especially for those districts that don't meet the priority list under the EPA Clean School Bus rebate. So, exactly. I'm talking to a lot of folks about that. They're disappointed that they only are, they're still getting, 100, 150, 190,000 for a bus, but still, like you said, that's half of what they need. So,
Right. We're working with some people. We're hoping that the next, part of the legislature that comes out, when we've had our product in front of people and say, hey, you wrote some funding around new bus, but think about this option too, because I actually, from a taxpayer money standpoint, I think it's a responsible choice and it needs to be part of the package. And I'm feeling pretty confident that we're going to be able to achieve that.
Yeah. And before I let you go, I do want to also touch on this, talking about seeding the industry, if you will, and preparing for EVs training. So we have an article in our current August issue that talks about this from a maintenance standpoint, where a lot of the OEMs are telling us, hey, they want all of the maintenance right now, especially on this warranty period. Warranty periods are always super important whenever a new model comes out, but especially when you're talking about a completely different drivetrain, powertrain, batteries, the electrical charge and whatnot, where OEMs are saying, we don't want school districts or school customers working on these. We want this to go through our dealers, our certified technicians. Can you tell us a little bit about what Midwest Transit is doing in terms of prepping its customers for the training necessary for ESPs?
Through IC, they have a next facility in Michigan. It's a wonderful facility. We've had a lot of our customers there. Part of this thing up front is having our customers there that we feel are very serious, maybe early adopters. And from a training standpoint, first of all, it's a global. Make sure you understand, here's what all this entails. And then as you get down to a service technicians, all in a location for us to deliver bus, all of our service technicians would have to be trained. And then we would like to have the bus in a location that we can get to it, right? Now, hopefully, I think in time, the reality is, as these get out there, school districts, their maintenance personnel have got to be brought on. So I would hope the industry, I know IC, Bluebird, they would hold factory, they would put on industry, training, that kind of thing. I know that will come as this ramps up, but I think that's important. And I can see initially you'd want to have a small, you want to be very much in control of this as you go. We all know there's going to be bumps in this road. We don't know what they are. So if we've kind of defined where we're going, we've at least kind of controlled it. And because like I said, I think everybody thinks it's inevitable, but I think, how we get there. The other thing is, and again, there's school bus experts. There's people that have been in the bus, and it is a unique industry. There's a lot of things that why we love this space is because it is what it is. As this has happened, there's other, people getting in this game, electric companies or those that truly sometimes as we run into them that don't understand the industry as well. And again, it's about putting, hey, we can do your whole fleet. And, we're like, hey, slow down. We got to, it's great, but slow down, right? Because we got to do this the right way. And you got to make sure the industry experts, there's got to be the world's going to change, but how we change it, we got to make sure that those key great leaders and thinkers are part of all this as we move forward.
Absolutely. Deliberate progress, I think, is what we're all looking for.
Right. Steady progress, right? Deliberate, steady progress. I hear you.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Well, John McKinney, owner of Midwest Transit Equipment, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your perspective on supply chain and electric school buses. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully get to see you in person very soon.
I hope so, too. You all have a great rest of the day. Thanks, Ryan, for the opportunity.
Hey guys, great episode. So much love for you guys out there in the school transportation community. Best of luck as you start school. So many of you have started or are starting or preparing. I know my kid's starting in a few weeks, so it's coming up soon. And special thanks to our guests, Antonio Civitella, John McKinney, Mr. Ryan Gray. Thank you to producer Claudia as well for putting together a great podcast for us. Again, brought to you by Transfinder, the leader in school bus routing software. Couldn't do it without them. So thank you to them. Make sure to go stnonline.com to check out all the latest and greatest stories. Also, don't forget the TSD conference. We have the super early bird discount deadline coming up. It's upon us. Make sure to go to tsdconference.com to lock in that $150 savings for full conference registration. It is coming up like days away, guys. So don't wait any longer. Jump on it. Get the savings now. If you guys have any questions about our conferences for 2023, just go to stnexpo.com. We've got all our new dates, new information. There's a lot of conferences that you need to put on the roadmap for next year. We got lots of content coming your way. So we love you, nation. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.